Hey, this is the Better Life Podcast with Brandon Turner and Cam Cathcart. This is a special Friday episode we call Cash Flow Fridays, where we interview people on one specific investment strategy that produces phenomenal cash flow in this market. This show is meant to be short, sweet, to the point, so you can implement it right away into your life. Without further ado, let's get to the episode. Miller, welcome to the show, man. Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What's up, Miller?
Dude, all right. So first of all, I'll just give a quick shout out. Thank you for the ride you gave me one time. That's how me and Miller got to know each other. Is I put a thing on my Instagram, said, hey, anybody in Colorado can give me a ride for an hour and a half. And you did. You came and picked me up at the airport and took me down to Colorado Springs. And yeah, dude, it was actually at that event that you picked me up for that dropped me off at the event. It was that event that I envisioned everything we've done today, the podcast, the Better Life Tribe, all of it. It's when I met Tim Tebow, and none of that could be possible without you giving me that ride. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's why I have 25% ownership in Better Life.
Yeah. Which is great because it's a nonprofit.
Yeah, great. Yeah, 25% of a nonprofit.
Terrible negotiating on your part, Miller.
All right, man. Well, we got to get into this. This is our rapid fire show where we try to get in and out as fast as possible, give people some good value. And we're talking to people who are actually buying real estate in this market. And so I'm going to throw it at you. We're going to start with the Fast Five. We'll need a theme song. You're like, Fast Five. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, we don't have that yet. Fast Five. Let's start. The first question, what is your name?
Miller
Full
McSwain.
name. And you have a brand around that, right? What's your brand? You and I dreamed that up together.
Yes. Yeah.
What is the brand?
We run the Not Rocket Company. So I'm currently a nuclear rocket scientist, transitioning out of that. But yeah, whenever I met Brandon during that drive, I was trying to come up with a brand, and he was like, "Dude, you're a nuclear rocket scientist." So thus the company was born. It's not rocket science. It's just real estate. So.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I love it. And you're transitioning now to like financial freedom, full-time real estate, that kind of stuff. Like.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. Full-time doing our strategy that we'll talk about today.
Awesome, man. Well, what is that niche? Maybe we should back and forth that one, Cam. What do you think?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna let Cam ask that one.
What is that niche?
Thanks, Cam.
Cool. Yep. Yeah. So we are, full-blown, all investing in CoLiving. So high level CoLiving is also known as rent by room, right? So, it's still Wild West days of the strategy. So there's not like an official definition or anything, but the way that we're defining it is, you're buying a, 5-bedroom, 6-bedroom, 7-bedroom property. And instead of renting it out, on one lease to, traditional family, it's 5, 6, 7 different tenants, different leases. There's not a master lease or anything. They're all on their different rent schedules, different start and end dates. And by doing that, we're getting, instead of $2,000 a month in rent, we're getting like 7. So it's like over 3x, depending on the market. But
dude, that's amazing. So where do you invest?
Yeah, we're in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
All your properties are there as well?
Yep, all of them are there.
Are you going to stay in that market, you think, until you've kind of taken it over, or are you guys going to expand to different markets?
Yeah, we're looking at expanding now. I mean, we're going to continue buying here. But kind of what we've been seeing is we've been acquiring really quickly as of late. So like over the last 8 months, we bought like 4 properties. And so we're seeing that even within the last like 45 days, buying 2 properties and bringing like 15 rooms online, that's a lot to like flood the market with. So like we're getting like a vacancy backlog because like it'll take, a week to get each room rented, perhaps on average. So it's like, having that many rooms at once is tough. So we want to start acquiring in other markets and serving different renter pools so we don't face that backlog.
How do you determine with CoLiving what is a good market and what's not a good market?
Yeah, so that's something that we've really been diving into. And honestly, we approached that question the wrong way first. First, we asked, where do the numbers look best? So that drove us to some places like Huntsville, Alabama, Augusta, Georgia, some of these like cheaper markets. And honestly, we were about to pull the trigger on a property in Augusta. And I was like, let me just make sure that people want this. So then I posted, a room listing in that market, like on Facebook. And it was like crickets, like no bites, nothing. So I think that not every market supports this from a renter demand side. So now what we've done is, put listings like that in a handful of different markets to test how much interest there is. So that's the biggest thing. You need to have a market where there's folks who want something like this. So what we found is in our town, there's a lot of military. So like that's a good resident type that you could go after. Or it could be college students or just around like low income folks that are still great people. Like we have elementary school teachers, social workers, like security guards, like folks like that, where it's really tough for them to afford a 1-bedroom apartment in that market.
Awesome. I messed up the Fast Five because I didn't ask.
You got curious, man.
I'm so interested in this strategy. So number 4, how much can you cash flow per house?
Yep. So on average, we're hitting 24,000 a year cash flow. So like $2,000 a month in cash flow.
An actual cash flow, like
An
profit.
actual, and I'm, like I said, nuclear
Real
rocket
pure.
scientist. So like I'm including everything in that. Like the numbers are
Yeah.
good.
That's great, man.
I have
Dude,
a question on that, but that's the next one.
All right, last question.
Mess up the fast five.
Yeah, what would you would you recommend this niche to others? It's the last of the 5.
Yes.
The mediocrely speed 5.
Yes.
You would recommend it.
I would.
All right, so we'll dig into more. We got a bunch more questions to ask you, but what were you gonna
So one of my questions was, so in this method, are you, because you're probably buying off the MLS, I would assume, or are
Yep.
you buying off market? So
MLS.
then how are you, or how does the average person that isn't a rocket scientist or doesn't make a high income type of job, how are they able to afford a house to be able to do this strategy?
Yeah. So, I mean, we bought our first co-living property while we were in college, making $0. So we
So
did
how did you
have
put money down, or did you
Yeah.
use?
So it was 5% down kind of thing, and whatever, save money from internships and things like that. But I mean, we didn't need a super high income to house hack. I mean, most folks can do that just fine. So this is, when you're house hacking, you're either going to be renting rooms, which is the strategy we're talking about now, or short terming or whatever. But yeah, you could get into co-living just by house hacking. We did that twice. I'm sitting in my second house hack right now.
Love it.
And then you can move beyond that at some point, and we're buying most of them with partners these days who are bringing a lot of the cash, and then we're just because we had the experience after 2 house hacks. So when you get experience, you can bring in folks, to kind of help out too.
Which, by the way, little plug here, Better Life Ref, which is my real estate funding company. So we actually can do, on a limited basis, we can do some co-living. Right now, we can only do it if you go through PadSplit, which is kind of a management sort of company. But it's something that we're working on. So anyway, if anybody wants to know more, just betterliferef.com. All right. Do you have one?
I have a question for you and for you, Miller, because I love the strategy of using a partner to come in and put the down payment and then be able to increase rents and then refinance them out. Are you guys able to basically lend based on the income that property is producing? Or
We can, yes.
You can.
Yeah, as long as it's with the company
With
PadSplit. And that's just kind of a relationship we built there.
So then you own that house without any of your money, without any of your own money.
You could definitely own that house with any of your money. Yeah,
That's
without
amazing.
Yeah, especially if you're bringing a partner and you burr it, you could. If we need a name for burring co-living, no one's come up with that name yet, have they? Have you heard of it? Burr living. Yeah, there's I've heard like Air Burr and B. It's like you burr Airbnb, so Air Burr and B. So we need a clever name for co-living. So if anybody has an idea, I want you to shoot me a DM on Instagram, Beardy Brandon, and let me know your idea there for a name for co-living Burr. There's got to be good. We should ask ChatGPT later. All right. Next question. I'm going to go with this one. Why would you consider this better than just traditional, like the old school traditional real estate investing? Like, why is this better? Why is it producing more cash flow?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's pros and cons with this strategy. But I mean, in general, if you were to buy a long-term rental today with, the standard 20, 25% down, 5% down, whatever, it's likely not going to cash flow. Folks who bought them in 2018, 19, whatever, they could probably cash flow. But in today's environment, you have to get creative some way if you want to make cash flow. So that's probably either, buying something that's at a discount and fixing it up, kind of like Cam does. Like that's an option.
Yep.
Or you're going to be looking at putting a lot of management work in. So, that's either short-term rental, midterm, which, if you are buying today, that's what most folks want to do. They're like, oh, I'll short-term or I'll midterm. Like those are kind of the options. But co-living is the up-and-coming strategy that, has been around forever, but it's really getting popularized right now as another way that you can get cash flow that's very similar to a short-term rental.
Yeah, I love co-living. In fact, I'm going to buy one. I'm in process of buying one right now. I'm buying my son a property. So I bought my daughter one 5 years ago or 7 years ago now. So I'm buying my son now one, and we're pregnant with another kid. So I'm going to have another one to buy.
Yeah.
But my fear with them is that it is Wild West right now. There's not a lot of people doing it. And so my fear is oversaturation at some point, especially a city like, Colorado introduced a lot of legislation that basically allows you to have a lot of co-living. Like they really are co-living friendly, which is great. But what happened in Airbnb will happen to co-living. It's too many people get in and all of a sudden there's way too many listings. So that's something just for us to be aware of. I'm curious, do you have thoughts on that? Like, are you concerned about it?
Yeah. So my thoughts on that are, the folks who got into Airbnb in the early days or into short-term rentals in the early days, they're probably still around. The folks who are struggling to stay afloat are the guys who got in, 2 years ago. And they weren't great at it yet. They hadn't had enough time. So, if you're an early adopter of any strategy, if you are the type of person who can document everything and optimize and improve your business over time, like even if it does get big, like no one will be able to compete with us in Colorado Springs because we've been doing it for 4 years and we know exactly how to do everything. We know exactly where to find the tenants. We know exactly how to price. We have enough data to price everything. So getting in early is a big advantage.
Yeah.
Love that.
Awesome. Hey, I want to ask you about the math on a deal, or have Cam ask you, but before we do, let's hear a quick word from today's show sponsor. You know, one of the hardest lessons I've learned in building my real estate business is this: I can't do everything on my own. And trust me, I have tried. Like, I was that guy wearing all the hats: acquisition, property management, marketing. I even tried my hand at bookkeeping, which, by the way, is not a great idea. It was not until I embraced the art of delegation that things really started to take off for me. I actually remember hiring my very first virtual assistant, and then I realized right away, why did I wait so long to do this? And honestly, I was amazed at how great they were. They're better than me at most things they did. And in fact, that first VA is still with me today, 10 years later. Now, suddenly I had time to focus on bigger picture things, scaling the business, finding more deals, and honestly spending more time with the family. And that is why I'm excited to tell you about our sponsor today, HireTrainVA.com. So these guys have cracked the code on finding top tier virtual assistants for the real estate investing world. They go through a brutal selection process. Only 1% to 2% of applicants make it through, so you know you're getting the best of the best. And they've got this really cool draft board where you can actually handpick from the top talent that they've already sourced and vetted. It's like having your own personal dream team at your fingertips. And if you're unsure where to start or how to delegate right, they've got you covered with a free guide on 100+ tasks that you can start delegating today. Just head over to HireTrainVA.com. You know, I believe in them so much that their owner, Valentina Brega, it's a friend of mine. I actually brought her on the podcast a while back. It's on episode 42, so if you want to check that out, go listen to a masterclass on how to hire and work with virtual assistants. So hey, if you want the fast track on hiring your first VA, but you don't know where to start, just shoot me a DM over on Instagram with the word delegate. Just delegate, and I'll hook you up with some of the same resources that transformed my business. Stop wearing all the hats and scale faster. Hire a VA, free up your time, and scale your business. Go to HireTrainVA.com or hit me up on Instagram with the word delegate. It's time to take that next step in your business. Now, back to the show.
All right, Miller. So if you could break down a deal from us, like everything from how much it costs, how much you had to put down, and then even like the rehab that you did, you have to wall up dining rooms or to turn them into bedrooms. So can you break down the math on a deal and then what it rents out for and what it cash flows after all expenses?
Yeah. So, a property that we bought 8 months ago, and most of our properties are pretty similar to this, but it depends on your market, but at least the thing that we're seeing is that we need to buy really large houses to make sense at today's rates and purchase prices. We need to buy really large houses. So this one's like 3,000 square feet when we bought it. But it was only a 3-bedroom, which is really weird, right? Huge house, but not a lot of bedrooms, which we found is a really good target to kind of go after because most properties that are that big, they're probably newer. They're like 2005 build year or later is usually what we're seeing. So investors aren't really going after them because they don't need work. Like they could be move-in ready. And then, families aren't really looking at them because if you're looking for a house that big, you're probably having 3-4 kids. You need a lot more than 3 bedrooms. So kind of gives us room to negotiate on these. So this house was listed at like 535, I think, which is, a little bit upper on our market. Our average is like 490. Anyway, the numbers made sense for us at 510. So we came in lower than 510 to where, 510 was the split the difference number, which is what we wanted, right?
Yeah.
So put that offer in. They basically said no with no other feedback. It was like, like they were upset about like, nope, that's it. We're not talking with you. Made that offer every week for like 5 or 6 weeks. Eventually they did come back. And I think there was a little bit of negotiation, but we locked it up at 510. So that's a purchase price that you could expect in a market like this. Denver will be a little bit more. Seattle would maybe be similar to Denver. So locked up at 510, brought a partner in. We needed 180,000 total for, like 130,000 for down payment, 35 for remodel and then some closing costs. So once we had this thing locked up, it did need remodel so that it works for this strategy. That's something that you can expect when you buy a property. You're likely going to be adding rooms to it. But one thing that I do want to caution folks against is there's a lot of companies out there that'll promote some things that we're not so keen on, like turning all the living rooms into bedrooms and getting rid of all community spaces and stuff like that. So we are big on providing an awesome experience for our residents, because you can do that and still cash flow if you buy the right property. But that's the tough part. We have to look at 900 listings before we find one, because it has to be very specific. But yeah, so we turned a dining room into a bedroom, turned a extra living room into a bedroom. Colorado's big on having extra living rooms. Finished out the basement. And then the coolest thing that we did, probably at any property, on the second level, there's like a balcony that overlooks the entry. So you can see the front door from the second floor. So we extended that balcony across, added like 120 square feet, and added another like primary bedroom with its own suite bathroom there. So
wow.
Yeah.
How many total bedrooms now?
Yeah.
How many? Yeah. What's your total bedroom count then on that one?
Yeah. So now there, it's 7 bedrooms and like 4 baths.
And how much do you rent it out for?
Yeah. So total is in like, it's somewhere around that $7,000 mark. The basement is like a midterm, so it rents for basically 2 rooms worth. It's like $1,600, and then the other 6 rooms rent for anywhere from like $750 to $1,000, depending on if it has its own bathroom and not.
What is what if somebody would go rent like a 1-bedroom apartment in your town? What are they paying for rent and something like that?
Yeah, it'd be like $1,400, $1,500.
Okay, so that's really the key here. Is you want people who they're like, I could pay $1,400, but I could pay $800 over at this house, and they'll take that because they want to save money and they don't mind living with people. That's the
exactly. I think that's why Huntsville and like some of those markets didn't work, because you could rent a 1-bedroom apartment for, I don't know, $1,000.
Yep.
So like I could save $200 by renting a room. That's not big enough difference to be a motivator.
Yeah, I talked to a rent by the room guy because we have a bunch, and he was telling me that they were cash flowing so much, and asked him about St. Louis, and you can rent a studio apartment for $900, and he was like, it doesn't really make sense because nobody's going to pay $700 for a room and live with other people when they can just go rent their own spot for $900.
Yeah, a room a 1-bedroom apartment in Maui here is like $2,500 to $3,000.
Yeah.
So rent by the room works really, really well here.
Yeah.
But again, every house is $1 million plus. But like the math can work out. You buy again, like you said, you have to look at 900 houses, but you get the one that's got the 7 bedrooms.
So like what you just bought has 7 bedrooms? Or?
Yeah, what I just bought, here in Maui. I'm living in it, but if I didn't, I could rent out. Yeah, there's 7, 8 bedrooms. Probably get
$2,500.
Yeah, probably $2,500 each. I would. Yeah, but I also paid over $3 million for it. So
But even then, the numbers would probably still work. 2,500 times 7. That's 19,000. Might be off a little bit, but
whatever. Anyway, cool.
The other big question though is parking. The other big question though is parking.
Yes.
So I don't know what your property's like, but most properties don't have enough parking, and so kind of depends on your market. But here we're not a walkable city at all, so we need a car space per resident. So usually that's going to be a corner lot, or we don't mind parking on someone's side yard if they have a fence. So like if across the street is someone's side yard with a fence, we'll park there. We just don't want to park in front of anyone's house because we're not trying to stir up any trouble in the neighborhood.
Yeah, love it. All right, what does the future look like for you?
Yeah, so we're going to keep expanding this co-living thing. We don't see that it's dying down, right? Because this whole thing is really predicated on terrible renter affordability in a lot of these more expensive type cities. So I pulled data and talked about it at a meetup recently, and at least in our market, you need to make at least $60,000 a year or more to comfortably afford a 1-bedroom apartment, meaning you're spending like 30% of your income or less on the apartment. So that leaves 30% of the population here that needs to rent something cheaper than a 1-bed, and that's it. That's how low you go. So the only alternative is the co-living. We just see that trend ticking up, based on that data. The affordability hasn't gotten any better over the last 5 years. And so we don't really expect it to. So we're going to continue building this out.
What do you think about the future of the niche? Like, what do you think is going to happen with that? Is it going to become more regulated? Are you worried about that at all? Or are you worried about when interest rates come down and people can start renting out houses for less? Are you worried about any of that for this specific niche?
Yeah. So as far as regulation goes, it seems that states are starting to lean towards co-living. It's not official in every state yet, but I know Washington State and Colorado, where I'm at now, has formally removed occupancy limits on single-family houses, meaning that used to they were limited to 5, depending on the city. Now you could have however many you want, and the government's cool with it. And the reason is because they want to support locals having cheap housing, Whereas compared to like short-term rentals, in a metro type market, there's a lot of risk if there's not a law now that there will be, just because it does price out the locals, right? So we see that happening in more states because legislators want cheaper housing for their locals, and the locals want it too. And then we just see more education in the space as well. It's very, very Wild West days. There's no official guide for it on the market yet. And so there's a lot of work to be done on the education front to teach people how to do it right and still treat their tenants well.
Very cool, man.
Love it.
What challenges, unique challenges, have you faced, or could somebody face when they're trying to get into co-living?
Yeah, I mean, it all just stems from there's 6 or 7 people in a house, right? That's a lot of personalities in one house. So there's a lot of like preventative measures that you need to take to keep everything, calm and smooth in the house. There's a lot of tips that you could go into, but some of the big ones that we do, we provide like all shared supplies for the house, right? So whenever I was in college, I'd buy the toilet paper, roommate would use it, and now I'm mad at him, he's getting mad back at me because then I use his later, so we provide like toilet paper, paper towels, dish soap, trash bags. All of that is like similar to a short-term rental. Like we're going to provide all of those sort of things. We provide cleaning. Yep. We have a house cleaner that comes through on a monthly basis. That's another big one. And these are kind of optional things that most operators don't do. But we found that they've really helped out and helps out their resident as well. The cleanings help out a lot.
Do you have house rules like within that month of like, hey, this person's supposed to clean the kitchen every night or 3 times a week? This person's supposed to clean the bathroom.
Yeah, we do not, just because it's not going to be followed. Like, that's great. That's, idealistic and that's cool. But in reality, no one's going to take on that responsibility from what we've seen. Like these are just folks who work, they go to work, they come home, they don't want to be doing chores, they want to pay their rent and have it taken care of. So yeah, it's just all inclusive. They pay their rent, the cleaner's included, they pay their rent, we pay someone to do the lawn. They pay their rent and we host like community events. Like we have like pizza nights for them and all these sorts of things just to kind of, enhance that community and make them feel like they're at home. So no, we do it all.
Very cool.
Awesome. All right. Last question. How can somebody learn more about this space? And if somebody wanted to get into it, what would you say? Like, here's the first thing you need to do.
Yeah. So I would kind of split it into 2 buckets. So if you're, a young guy or gal getting out of college, young 20s, this is like the obvious step to do within house hacking. Yeah. Buy your 3%, 5% down, property, rent out the rooms while you're there, build your systems while you're there, optimize while you're there, and then you can scale it when you move out. I think that's a great way to learn about this strategy. If you're, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, you already have a family. The best thing that you can do is to educate about this, but you're not going to be able to do it in your own house, probably. So there are a lot of resources out there. We're actually writing a book about co-living right now. Like I said, there's not a guide for this right now. So, so you could check out our Instagram for that. But otherwise, you need to be educating on this somewhere online because there's not a lot of resources yet. So you probably won't meet someone in your market that's doing it at scale, but you could potentially at a meetup.
What is your Instagram handle for people that are watching that want to learn a little bit more?
Yeah, if anyone's interested, it's just my name, Miller McSwain, MILLER MCSWAIN. And if you just DM us book, then we'll get you set up.
Awesome, man. Hey, Miller, this has been awesome. Hey. Thank you.
Cool.
Appreciate you sharing about cash flow and how to get it when everyone says you can't. So appreciate it.
Amazing.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
See ya.
Awesome. See you, Miller.
And that, my people, is the show. Thank you for tuning in. And hey, before you go, if you enjoyed the episode or if you enjoy the show in general, please consider leaving us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We really do value your feedback and we read the comments. We make future decisions about topics and guests and everything else. Plus, it helps us reach more people the more reviews we get. And last but not least, please head over to social media. Consider friending and following and subscribing to all that stuff at Better Life and my personal page at Beardy Brandon, Instagram, YouTube, and everywhere else. Thank you again for listening. I'm honored that you would bring me along on your journey toward building wealth through real estate investing without losing your soul.